All right, so I first want to thank everyone for being here and sticking it out with us. Having a good conference so far? It's great, isn't it? I love this event, love what it stands for, and I'm here every single year, so definitely honored to be here on behalf of WWLF as well. I'd like to introduce myself first. My name is Carrie Charles. I'm the CEO of Broadstaff. Broadstaff is a telecommunications staffing firm. And I'm also a proud, I guess you would call me ex-Marine, but once a Marine, always a Marine. So, what Kevin just said is also very dear to my heart because, I think that that's not just a crucial solution to our talent shortage, but these folks are amazing, the veterans and what they have to bring. So I want every single one of you to please call Kevin, please. And it makes a huge difference. So, we've heard so much this week about the talent shortage and the skills gap that we're facing in this industry. Jay Brown, Todd Shuckway, Kimberly Curley, and Kevin Kennedy. Almost every person that's gotten on this platform has said something about workforce and talent. How many of you are responsible for hiring in some capacity in your jobs? Okay, great. And how many of you are feeling this shortage right now? Okay, very good. So, these are real problems. And, the topic that we're going to talk about today, it's interesting because this is one solution to this problem. Kimberly talked about turnover and, keeping the employees that you have. So first of all, it's difficult to find them. But once you find them, you want to keep them, right? So these are the challenges that we're facing now, and it's going to get worse and worse in our industry. So the topic we're going to talk about today centers around diversity and inclusion. And this topic is important, and we're going to talk about why it's important. But if you create a diverse and inclusive environment and culture, you're going to have more of a shot of keeping people with you, so they don't get poached by people like me. Just kidding. I'll admit it. I got, really red when Kimberly's like, how many people poach your people? But anyway, that's what we're for, the staffing company. So to keep people like us out of your businesses, create an inclusive and diverse environment and culture. So, when we talk about this topic of inclusion and diversity, I'm sure that you have thoughts and perceptions and views that immediately come to your mind about this subject. And so what I'm inviting you today to listen to this conversation as if you've never heard it before. Listen for a nugget, a golden nugget that's going to help you be a better leader and build stronger teams to hire better and retain. So in other words, how many of you think you're open-minded, would call yourself open-minded? Okay, a lot of us would. So I'm inviting you to just sit and listen with an open mind. It's going to be a very interesting conversation, very fun, sometimes possibly controversial. If you have a question or a comment, even in the middle, don't save it to the end. I mean, there's only a few of us here. Just raise your hand, speak up, and say, hey, I've got a comment on that, or could you expand on that a little further? I'd like to share with you some interesting facts about diversity and inclusion that you may not know. Fewer CEOs are women than are named David. Racially diverse teams outperform non-diverse ones by 35%. 57% of employees think their company should be more diverse and inclusive. 57%. Now, they may not talk about it, but that's the way that they feel. Age bias, this is something near and dear to my heart because I'm 51 and I feel this all the time. Age bias starts at 47. Can you believe that? 47, that's young. Blind applications lead to 5 times more women being hired. African Americans are 16% less likely to get invited to job interviews. Fascinating, huh? People with a physical disability take less time off work. And 83% of millennials are more engaged at work when they believe their company fosters an inclusive culture. So diversity and inclusion is not just a good idea. It is imperative for the success of our workforce in the future. Diversity and inclusion is the future of our workforce. So that's why you're hearing a lot about it lately in the news, everywhere. It's a very, very hot topic. So today we're going to take a deeper look and a deeper cut at inclusion, belonging, and support instead of just diversity. Because it's more than just numbers and checking boxes. It's about allowing people's voices to be heard and bringing their whole selves to work, having their creativity and, most importantly, innovation unleashed. Because diverse teams innovate better. We are going to have the future of this industry, 5G, automation, artificial intelligence, all of that is going to be created through diverse teams, because diverse teams cause friction, cause people to be uncomfortable. And it's that friction and that feeling of being uncomfortable in a team that causes innovation. And that's what we're going to look at today. So we have with us today a very diverse and brilliant group of panelists. And I want you to know that when creating this panel, everyone was handpicked for who they are and what they could bring to the conversation. So they're in many different industries and roles, and so they're going to bring a different view to the conversation. I'd like to introduce to you first Ashley Davis. Ashley is the global lead for external affairs on the Global Inclusion and Diversity team at Cargill. She serves as an inclusion and diversity public speaker for several industries, including the food, hospitality, agribusiness, STEM, and the telecom sectors. Prior to Cargill, Ms. Davis served for over 6 years in the Obama administration, both in the White House as a presidential political appointee at the U.S. Department of Agriculture, where her roles included White House liaison and senior advisor to the Assistant Secretary for Civil Rights. Mrs. Davis's civic engagement includes serving as board member of the Metro Nashville Community Oversight Board, the University of Pittsburgh Alumni Association, and Colorado State University's Corporate Diversity Advisory Council. Welcome, it's awesome. Our next panelist is Deborah Taylor Tate. Deborah Taylor Tate serves currently as the director of the Administrative Office of the Courts for the Supreme Court of Tennessee and member of the American Judges Association and the Conference of State Court Administrators. She was twice nominated to the Federal Communications Commission by President George W. Bush and unanimously confirmed by the U.S. Senate in 2005. She also served as commissioner of the FCC until 2009, serving as chair of 2 federal joint boards regarding advanced telecommunications services. She's held numerous state positions in her career. She served as the chairman of the board for Centerstone and currently serves on the board of HealthStream. She is the vice chairman of the Minority Media and Telecommunications Council in DC, and she serves on the National Board of Directors for the Centerstone Research Institute. Welcome, Deborah. And our next panelist is Tom Marciano. Tom Marciano has over 30 years executive management. That's a long time, Tom. Actually, he started when you started.
I was 10.
You were 10, yeah, I got it. I shouldn't have, I'm sorry about that. Long time of executive management and hands-on experience in the wireless telecommunications and real estate construction industries. Tom currently serves as the Chief Revenue Officer of In-Range Solutions, a minority business entity recognized in 2016 and 18 by the U.S. Pan-Asian American Chamber of Commerce as one of the top 100 fastest growing MBE companies in the U.S. Congratulations, that's awesome. InRange provides critical management and professional consulting services to the wireless industry. Additionally, Tom currently serves as a board member of Azimuth Engineering Group and is the president of the New York State Wireless Association. Welcome, Tom. And our next panelist is, it's great. Introductions, they take a while, but it's really great to know who you're talking to and who's up here, and it really adds depth to the conversation. Our next panelist is Kara Silbert. Kara Silbert currently serves as the Director of Human Capital for Network Building and Consulting. NBNC is a wireless site development firm. Her responsibilities encompass the strategic oversight of the employee life cycle, including talent acquisition, talent management, performance management, learning and development, employee engagement, and retention. That's a lot. Kara, do you do all that? Golly. Kara brings more than 20 years of experience to her position from industries such as consulting, accounting and finance, and engineering. These multifaceted roles in human resources and management have given her the expertise instrumental to be successful in development and leadership of NBNC's growing human capital team. And last but not least, our fearless leader of WWLF is our president, Carolyn Hardwick. Yay. Our new president. She's doing a fabulous job, by the way. Carolyn Hardwick is a senior director of national accounts for MSO at KGP Co. KGP Co. is an industry leader in advanced supply chain solutions, value-added distribution, turnkey network services, and product software integration services. She's based in Atlanta, Georgia, and began her career in telecom with Sprint in 2000. Carolyn's tenure includes 8 years in wireless site development, 8 years as a business development director, and 2 years as an MSO national account director. She currently serves as the president of Women's Wireless Leadership Forum and has been an active member for approximately 15 years. Welcome, Carolyn. Welcome, Kara. So let's get started by talking about what is the difference. Let's find out what is the difference between diversity and inclusion. We hear this a lot, and let's just clarify that before we even move into this conversation. Ashley, would you like to start us there?
Sure. Absolutely. Good almost afternoon, everyone. It's amazing to be here and quite an honor. We're right before lunch, so I don't like standing between everyone and their protein, so I will speak succinctly here, right? So when I think about diversity, inclusion, and then Carrie mentioned belonging to here, right? I'll give you this example. To me, diversity is when you open, let's say we're all going to a dance, though, whether we wanted to or not, right? We've all been to prom or something similar. Diversity is when you open the dance up to everyone. You say everyone's invited to come, right? You say that. Inclusion is when you extend the invitation, right? So I purposely and intentionally hand that invitation to you. Belonging is when you ensure that everyone is asked to dance, right? Every single person in that space matters. Their importance, their value matters, and that's what we have to think about in our organizations, right? Yeah, we're diverse. I'm pretty sure in some space, and it's not just about racial as well, right? Not just gender, but it's our identities and what we bring to the table. And that doesn't mean that we can pat ourselves on the back when we hire 3 people who don't look like us. That means that we need to figure out what it is that brought them from the outside in, right? How did we attract you? And what's gonna make you stay, right? And it also matters how we come together socially, and in keeping with my succinctness right here, I want to say that it really does matter how we engage after hours as well. If we know there's always a Thursday or Friday happy hour, but it's at a place that isn't really sensitive to who I am, right? Then maybe we need to move that engagement around, right? If it's a full male staff that is always looking at Chuck and taking his drink order before they even look at me, yeah, I'm vertically inclined. I also have a baby face. Most folks don't know I'm in my mid-30s, right? And so they always seem to go to my colleague before they go to me. Then we need to think about that, right? Because we spend too much money bringing talent through the doors just for them to get fueled up with our information and knowledge and then head out into the world elsewhere. And it's just too risky, so yeah.
Excellent, thank you, Ashley. Let's talk about your individual career paths. What challenges have you faced, have you each faced in your careers? What have you had to overcome? And, you can speak into this area of diversity, inclusion, equity. Have there been any challenges that you faced that you've had to overcome to get to where you are today? Deborah, would you like to?
Sure. So thank you all. Welcome to Music City. For those of you all who are from out of town, always thrilled to have you and hope you have a chance to enjoy the weather in the great city. We're very proud of it. Before the panel started, I was just saying that so often I would walk into the room and I would be the only female in the room, and no one else seemed to ever notice that. And it started a long, long time ago. I mean, I'm on the other end of the gender discrimination now, and it was disturbing as a very young lawyer because I had all of the same qualifications, and even though I was just starting out, the same experience as my male counterparts. And so, from a different sector, I wanted to tell you all that what happened here in terms of lawyers and judges were we had one female judge in the entire metropolitan area of Nashville when I was just starting out. And so a group of women, and I was a young lawyer, I was part of that, decided we weren't going to have that anymore, and we were going to start pulling people together inclusively, race, gender, to try to get more people trained so they could raise money, so they could go out and do public speaking, they could network. And I looked at the numbers this morning, and it's just absolutely unbelievable. We have almost half of all of the judges now in the Nashville area are female. 3 out of 4 of the chancellors are. 3 out of 5 of our Supreme Court. So very few states in the country have a majority female Supreme Court. So I'm very excited about that. So what that speaks to is you have to do something. You don't just go along. And you also have to have a plan and make the plan, draw people who believe in that plan together. And what a difference it has made. It's made a difference because people believe now when they walk into a court and someone sitting on the bench looks like them, they have faith in the judiciary. So that's from a different sector.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Deborah. Thank you. Tom?
Sure.
What do you have to add?
So first, I don't think, is this on? Yeah? Okay, good. The first thing I want to say is the real reason I'm here today, and Kara's going to kill me, but apparently I'm here just to prop her up in case she faints. I just want to let everyone know that.
Thanks.
You're welcome. So first of all, I think the message that I want to bring to everyone today, and I first want to speak to the males, and particularly the white males in this audience, is that you have to look at where you've gotten to in your careers, your profession, whatever it may be, and think about the struggles that you may have had, and then look at the other people around you and think about the struggles that they have. And the perspective that I've gained probably only in the past 10 years is to be more retrospective about those things and looking at other people's struggles that they've had. And I was telling Carrie, one of the things is probably because I have a daughter that's now 19, and I started looking at the things that she faces versus my son who's 17. And I will tell you that I did not have a lot of struggles getting to where I am today. I made a very early decision to become an entrepreneur back in whatever the year was. And thank you.
We're good.
But I will tell you that because of that, and because I have a wife that's 30 years Verizon and worked her way up to a certain point, I think there's a certain glass ceiling that she's faced. I have had to look more closely at how do we create diversity, and especially to Ashley's point, how do we create inclusion? So I'm asking all the males, particularly white males, to look around you and think about the struggles that others have had, because it's, again, I can't speak for everyone, so I don't want to generalize, but for most white males, we do not have anywhere near the struggles that women, people of color, other diversities have. So that's my message, and I will tell you, if you do that and you think more about it, you will start to think about in thinking about their struggles, you'll think about what do you need to do to become more inclusive as a person, at your company, and I will tell you that I'm very, very honored to be part of this panel. Thank you for asking me, Karen.
Of course.
And Carrie, I was wondering if I could speak for a moment, because if
Yes.
I tag on to what you said, Tom, in my career, I was a school teacher for 8 years, and in the year 2000, I went to go work at Sprint. It was the Sprint affiliate Airgate in Charleston, and I took a job as a project coordinator for the summer. And pretty much the main qualifications were you need to be organized and you need to assist the project managers. And I had a very approachable vice president who was at this seminar. I will not call him out, but he was a great
Go ahead, call him
mentor.
out, call him out.
Come on.
Let's give him some,
He was a great mentor, and he always made it clear, ask any question that you want, to know the answer to. Anything that I can do to help would be great. And he really encouraged me to learn as much as I could about telecommunications. He never looked down on me as, someone who was not as educated in telecommunications. And by the end of the summer, my manager and this vice president said, we would love for you to stay on and train to be a project manager. And had he not encouraged me, if those 10 weeks had ended and he would have just said, well, thank you very much, I would not still be in the industry. So it's a great success story, and sort of what you're saying, Tom, that, realize that you could be making an impact no matter where you are in your organization. Just some encouragement, some mentoring, believing in someone and helping them through that process really can make a difference between, really where they go or where they stay. So just something to think about.
very good, very good. Okay, do you have
Yeah,
something?
I'll tag on to that as
Yeah,
well,
go
because
ahead.
I actually also had a really remarkable experience, because I was a stay-at-home mom that left the workforce. I kept my toe in the water and did a lot, like 10 years of consulting, but when I interviewed at NBNC, it wasn't even a question that I didn't know the industry. I didn't come from the industry. I'd just done recruiting, and I met with their senior leadership, and they, they made me an offer that wasn't even a question that this was a person returning to the workforce that had been out of the workforce. And I started as a recruiter there, and they've gambled on me ever since. I mean, I've been promoted up, and I'm now I'm the director of human capital, and I didn't have any prior experience in that as well. But they have just afforded me a lot of opportunities to move through the ranks and to be successful with them. And listen, when I joined, I didn't realize, the industry had a lot of challenges, as we all have, this, that it primarily when I walked in the door, I didn't realize, wow, this is a very white male industry. So I had my challenges ahead of me that focused on diversity and inclusion. But with that, just the fact that they gambled on me showed me their dedication and the senior leadership's commitment to diversifying. So
Very good, very, very good. Let's talk about inclusion. How do you foster an environment where people who come from different backgrounds feel like they belong and feel like that you value their ideas? So just speak from your perspective, from an organization of WWLF, from your companies, how you foster that environment, any ideas that you have here. Whoever wants to go first, just dive on in. Okay.
I'll kick it off. Look, if you don't mind, I do want to say something very quickly about the importance of what Tom just said, right? You know, whether you said the word or not, Tom, you just spoke a lot about privilege, right? You just asked the gentleman in here to be courageous and bold in their actions, right? And to be honest about, look, it doesn't mean that you didn't work hard, you didn't earn that degree, but let's be honest, if I went in for the job and Tom went in, something inside of you, right, that unconscious bias, it's like, no, Tom seems like he's really leadership material, right? Even though I may have a degree or more than Tom, or maybe ready for this role a little bit more, or maybe you're going to get more out of me in this role than you would get out of Tom in 2 years, right? And so what Tom is asking right now is for us to do two things. One, in all of us, right? Because every single one of us has an ounce or 2 or 6 or 4 ounces of privilege, something inside of us, around us, right? The fact that we're in this room right now able to attend a conference, share out, and receive knowledge, that's a privilege. Someone wishes they could tap in to what we're listening to right now. And so the question is, one, what are you going to do with that privilege? And then two, how do you wash off the word privilege so that it's not so polarizing, right? You shouldn't feel guilty when someone says, hey, you got a privilege. You should say, man, that's true. Now, how can I extend it so that you also can experience what I've been, right? That's okay. I'm a lawyer. I'm from Nashville. I think that's a heck of a privilege, quite frankly. I've had immense opportunities, and I recognize also I'm a Black queer woman, right? So I have to try triple hard in spaces to make sure people understand my value. When women talk about gender equality, I am always excited, but I always push back and say, how many women of color are there, right? Because if I don't see someone of color in that space, I don't always feel like I am being represented. It's just the truth, right? And we have to be honest about that in our organizations. And so inclusion, coming back to it, is just that. We have to ensure that one doesn't mean all, right? And we got to be super okay with making mistakes here also, right? You're going to say something that's going to piss somebody off. That's okay, right? You're going to come up with a policy that only includes about 50% of the people you were trying to touch. That's okay, right? How many of us got here being perfect? None of us. We teach our children to be okay with making mistakes, to be thoughtful about their second approach. And that's all inclusion and diversity is here. It's not to shame anyone. It's not to make you feel guilty. It's to empower you to look around you and figure out who is not at the table. If you make decisions that are going to impact your customers and none of your customers are represented beyond one or two, you're screwing the pooch, right? You're messing it up, right? And it's okay to look outside and go, well, how do we bring it in? And just really quickly, the question always, well, we want to bring them in, but where are they? Well, then you got a pipeline issue, right? And then you got to be intentional about that pipeline. You got to decide, look, we're going to go and find one school with a diverse space, and if you don't know how to find them, find me on LinkedIn, and I'll help you figure it out, right? 6 months free, I got you. I'm telling you that it's out there, because what we've had to do is go into schools and say, we're going to work just with you all, and we're going to come in and help you with professional development. We're going to help you understand how your skills are transferable, and I promise you, within a year, you'll see a transformation in that space. And you might just have more inclusive leaders, which might just bring that profit margin up too.
Excellent. Thank you, Ashley. Excellent.
I'd like
Yes.
to respond to Tom as well, as being one of the white males in the room.
Can you stand up?
Uh,
Thank you. Thank you, Sharp.
I'm Sharp Smith. I'm the senior editor with AGL Magazine, and I do programming for our conferences. So I'm constantly going into my LinkedIn account and saying, okay, who do I got in Chicago? Who do I got in Washington, D.C.? And populating panels. And I think I started off this year unceremoniously having a whole conference with only one female speaker on all those panels. And I think, well, why did that happen? Well, I sort of go with the people I know and the people I've had before, and what feels like, my old go-tos, like, Ron Disick's, he's always available, he's always willing, he's always funny. But one of the things that I've done to myself is I've created an awareness of and tried to make things so that that they're more balanced. And I think a lot of it's about increasing that sphere, making sure there's more diversity in my LinkedIn file, and when I start calling people, that type of thing, and just with an eye towards just being more balanced in our conferences. And WWLF has been really good with that, because they had a session in Atlanta that I think opened up everybody's eyes. And we're doing a series of profiles this year. In every issue, we'll have an article on a different female that's excelling in the wireless world. So I think it's I think we probably haven't changed, but I think we're trying.
Excellent.
We're opening up our eyes.
So I just wanted to add to that briefly, because Sharp is working with us, and I'm going to do a real quick plug. New York State Wireless Association, June 21st, New York City Wireless Forum, just so everyone's aware.
Yes.
But Sharp's helping us with one of the panels, and one of the things I wanted to say, adding on to also what Ashley said, is it's not easy. We can talk about this, okay? What I find lately in the past year or so is, even for putting the panels together, all the calls that I do about the educational sessions and keynotes, I have to repeat again and again and again to people, diversity, inclusion. It's not enough to say it once. And the other thing is, if you own a company or you're with HR in a company or whatever it may be, you've got to put it in writing. It's got to be part of your mission, part of your goals. And then again, more reiteration about what you're trying to achieve, the diversity and the goals. So those two things, putting it in writing and repeating it to everyone, whether it's the New York State Wireless Board, where it's my company, extremely important that it gets set in people's minds, that it becomes part of their behavior in thinking that way.
Very good. Thank you, Tom. And thank you, Sharp. You're being very intentional. Thank you.
So I wanted to follow up on what Ashley said about the pipeline, because I think that's really important. I'm on a public board, and so we have kind of created some microcosms. One has to do with the gentleman that was just talking about the vets. And so we have really tried to go after and attract veterans because of all the training that you all just heard about, not only because so many of them have tech training that you all need and that the board I'm on needs, but also because their entire career has been about team building, and that's exactly what we're all talking about here. And so I think that that is one really good way. The other one that she mentioned, and I'll give you a very real example, this same board has a relationship with a historically black college. And so not only do they go out a couple of times a year and do recruiting, so they're on the campus, they every single year have a paid intern. That paid intern then goes out and finds the next intern. Then that person actually usually gets offered a full-time job. So we now have a pipeline that is continuing. So there's a very real example of something that you all can do in addition to calling Ashley and asking for her advice. And then the other thing that I'll just give an example of, I know I've spoken numerous times to a lot of the women's associations, but for instance, within AT&T Tennessee, they have AT&T Women. And so they get together, and whether they are doing some kind of philanthropy, a volunteer activity, doing a food bank, or having a speaker come in. But the point is to also give those people a place to find others who are like them. So while inclusion is about including everyone and making everyone feel valued and to express their diversity of opinion, it's also so that they can find people who are similar to them inside your companies.
Excellent. Thank you, Deborah. Excellent. Does anyone else have any thoughts around creating a culture of inclusion?
I was just going to speak about, again, kind of bring things around to tag on to really what everybody was talking about, including Sharp. I was talking with a colleague, and we were just talking about this idea of unconscious bias and inclusion. And, we navigate towards what's comfortable. If we interview someone, we want to make some kind of connection. We want to put someone in place who thinks like we do a lot of times. And again, unconsciously, we want to make that connection, and if we hit it off, then great. This sounds like you'd be a good fit for the position, right? So on the, just bear with me here as we go down this path, but with WWLF, all of a sudden I've gotten a lot of questions about whether or not men are welcome to attend our events. And we went through a period a couple of years ago where we were really talking a lot about men joining as member supporters of the organization. And now that we've moved a lot of events to a regional level, a lot of men are saying, hey, this is a topic that's interesting to us too, and we don't want to be excluded. And we've talked about that as a board, that, yeah, you know what, we do need to open up some of these forums so that the men can attend, because they're going to bring a totally different perspective in a lot of cases in talking about things like affirmative action or diversity or inclusion and things like that, rather than us being in a group of women who are really saying, you know, yeah, that's what I think too, and yeah, I've gone through that. Let's hear the male perspective. And again, it's just going to, you know, broaden our awareness and really allow us to understand what's going on, you know, in all areas.
Excellent, excellent points. Thanks. Thank you, Carolyn.
Yeah, and I would like to add that I think it's important that when you are working within an organization, that you're having honest conversations about it. I mean, you can, and I think it's a wonderful idea to have policy around diversity and inclusion, but I think being open, I mean, and I'll give you a very specific example. I have a manager that when I first started 5 years ago, his hiring practices were, you know, he's one of those rugged kind of guys, man's man, and he was really hiring all male engineers at the time. And I was starting an internship program, and I was specifically targeting minority colleges, female societies of engineers within universities. And I sat down with him and I said, you know, I'd really like to see you bring on interns that are minorities or female, and this is a good way for us to start diversifying our population, our workforce, building a pipeline, all of that. And he was very apprehensive with me, and I could tell he was really uncomfortable, and I said, let's have an honest conversation. I want to know, like, where's the roadblocks for you? I'm not judging you, I just want to know. And he said, I'm uncomfortable with, you know, working with a woman. Like, I feel I'm crass, and I cuss a lot, and I don't want them to be emotional and get upset with me, and I don't like when women get emotional. But he was really honest about it, and I gave him a lot. At first, I thanked him for being honest. I thought it took a lot of courage because he was talking to a woman, and that was something that, you know, was fair. And we really just talked through it, and I said, will you bring on a female intern for 12 weeks, and let's see how it goes. Let's just start there. Now I will tell you that he is my biggest advocate in hiring minorities and females. He loves work, and he says to me all the time, he's like, I love working with women. They're such hard workers. I mean, he has nothing but great things to say, and he's a huge advocate for me, and he's a senior, in leadership as well, and so, again, he helps model the behavior that we want in our organization. So it was a great turnaround. Having open conversations, talking about those biases are important.
Love it. Very good, Kara. And it all started with a conversation. That's where we need to start today. I want to be sensitive to time with Tom because he has a flight to catch. And he needed to be gone by 12, but there's one question that I need to ask while he's sitting here, because it's going to be, I definitely want to hear your answer. We all want to hear your answer. The percentage of females occupying junior roles in North American telecom is 40%. However, this talent is not being developed and retained to the executive level. Only 12% of executives in telecom companies are female. Only 19% of board members in telecom companies are female. So it's no secret that telecom is a male-dominated industry, but what we want to discuss now, especially, you know, with us in the room, I mean, the majority are men, and we want to talk about how men can empower, support, and develop female talent. And how are your organizations or companies developing and retaining female employees? And I know, Tom, this is near and dear to your heart, and you've put your words into action and made this happen. I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. We'd all like to hear.
So we continue to try as a company and as a not-for-profit organization, Your State Wireless. And like I said before, it's something that we have to put into practice every single day. And real quick, one anecdotal story, and she's going to kill me for this, but Iris Dawson
Iris
up front over here, one of our vice president. Iris, come on, just raise your hand.
Raise your hand, Iris. She's right here. She's awesome.
Vice president in InRange Solutions. And I remember when I first joined with InRange, she was there, and a coordinator position at the time, is that right? Coordinator. And they sent me out to train. Iris, my two partners said, hey, you've got a lot of experience, can you take Iris out? And I'm like, sure, let's do that. And we had to go to Brooklyn to pick up a lease, and as usual, I was on the phone the entire time. And when we got there, I also found out that Iris was 3-4 months pregnant. Okay. And I said, listen, we got to go inside. We're going to pick up the lease, meet with the guy, get him to sign it. And I stayed in the car for a few minutes, and it turned out to be more like 10 or 15 minutes. And I figured Iris would be waiting at the door. She wasn't. She went into this hair salon, is what we had to go into in Brooklyn, weaving your way through multiple rooms and massage tables. And when I finally walked in, there were women with the things on their head. What do you call those things?
Those are the dryer things.
Thank you, hair dryers. What do I know?
Do they still use those still?
When I walked into that door, they all turned around and looked at me like, what are you doing in here? And I was like, did a little blonde just come walking through? And they all pointed to the back room, and I wound my way back there. And sure enough, in this back office of this place, there's Iris sitting there, lease signed, chatting with the guy. And it's a great story because in a very short time frame, Iris went from this coordinator who really had no experience in our industry at all to vice president at the company today. And I just think it's a great story for women to understand, and for men too to say, listen, there's something that's being brought to the table. I will tell you right now, Tom Marciano was not getting that lease signed from this guy. Iris got it signed. So she really, and continues to bring something to the table every day. So we try at our company and at our New York State Wireless Organization to constantly be inclusive of people. And one more quick story for you two over here. We do Thursday nights out a lot, I think, right? And being, I think, the second oldest person in the office, I'm not included in that a lot of times. I hear they message each other, and usually by the end of the night, someone finally comes around and goes, hey, we're going out tonight. Do you think you want to go? And they learn very quickly that when they do trivia, I'm really good at some of the things. But again, it's a little bit reverse there, right? There's still inclusivity of me as an older male now that is important as well. So the term is used across all genders, all people of color and everything. It's important that we remember that. And as an organization, we continue to try and find, and I'm going to take Ashley up on it, by the way, because I am having a heck of a time finding board members for New York State Wireless Association. As hard as we try, I still only have, I think, 4 or 5 women, no people of color, and I don't even know where to look. I just know we have to keep looking.
Excellent. Thank you, Tom. And you can be excused to
Thank you very much.
catch your flight. I do not want to be responsible for you missing your flight.
Thank you very much,
Thank you,
Carrie.
Tom.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So let's continue this conversation a bit about how men can empower and support and develop female talent. Any other thoughts on that?
I wanted to, I guess, get back to some real basics, and that is just like right now, training. So if you all are doing training on a regular basis, if there's a regular review, that if you have a board or just your management team, so you have it on your calendar, we're going to review what does our management team look like, what are the percentages of our new hiring. I mean, all those are things that we all should be doing, and it should be absolutely on a calendar so that not a year goes by or a quarter that you aren't looking at those things. You know, if you're a public company, then you are subject to a lot of scores by other independent agencies, and it is not pretty often to get those reports back and have to look and say, oh my gosh, our scores went down, because of course then your stockholders and the public are seeing those kinds of scores. So we want to make sure that our business, our companies reflect what America looks like now. And we haven't even gotten into all the diversity. I know we have 105 languages in the Nashville school systems. Wow. So it is unbelievable. And I think with Amazon coming, that's going to attract even more diversity to Nashville.
Yes, I'll give 2 quick examples. One in my current company at Cargill. So we did about a 6-month study and found that in order for true, quick, and purposeful and sustainable advancement of women in from both entry level to management and then up to our executive level, that we had to go beyond mentorship. We've heard about mentorship a lot, and to actually engage intentionally in sponsorship. And there's a big difference between mentorship and sponsorship. And just really quickly, a mentor is someone who works with you, right? Coaches you, has coffee with you, talks with you and about you, right? A sponsor is someone who goes into rooms that you usually, one, don't know about or are not invited to, right? So conversations in boardrooms where decisions are being made and they talk you up, right? And what studies have shown, and I'm sorry I don't have that information in front of us, is that men have no problem with sponsorship, right? They quickly have that relationship with that executive that goes, you know, oh, Tom, yeah, someone needs to go to APAC for 6 months. We definitely need to send Tom. He's great, right? Whereas there's always a barrier to sponsoring women in spaces. And again, it takes a very formalized approach on this, because you don't know what you don't know, right? I don't know what rooms are existing right now where I wish and hope someone is thinking about me and talking me up and speaking about me. So that's one. And then two, Target did something I thought, and you won't find too many Midwest company bragging on each other, but I think this is important for us to note. A gentleman by Michael McClannon, and he's their chief information officer. He came in and noticed that they had a bottleneck problem with women, their engineers, being advanced up to the managerial role. So he developed a pipeline program for managers to be developed up to that next level. However, for the first 18 months, he only accepted women. It was very, very well received, and then not so well received in certain spaces. But what it's shown them is they've developed managers and been able to advance women 21% higher than where they were before the 18-month program began. And now the women are outside looking to banging the walls in to get into Target, not just because it's Target and they got cool swag, but because also they realize that there's a very intentional program looking to advance them up. And some of us would be queasy about the idea of presenting something like that, but that's what it means to be courageous and bold here in doing this work.
Love it. Love it, Ashley. Any other thoughts? Okay. So, you know, it's interesting because I hear this all the time when talking about this conversation. You know, I get it. I believe it. I think it's important. But I'm interested in hiring the best person for the job. And I'm not finding that many candidates that are diverse. And so if my priority is hiring the best person, and there's not a woman or a person of color or someone else that is qualified for that job, then I end up hiring a white male or whoever's the best person. So what are your thoughts on this? Let's discuss this for a minute, because I know this is a major roadblock when hiring.
Well, again, to go back to something I was talking about earlier, I think we do, we're drawn towards people that are more like us or, a more comfortable fit. And sometimes it's just great to think outside the box and recognize that, hey, someone, who's 30 years younger is going to bring some new ideas. Again, another example, I was talking with someone and they were saying, people who are in their 50s and 60s a lot of times are thinking about, gosh, I'm just trying to get to retirement, where maybe a millennial is thinking, I can't wait to see where this technology goes. I can't wait to finish this task and get to the next task. So even something like that, just bringing a different thought process, having different ideas about that end goal, it just, we need to take risks sometimes with people. And if I had gone in and interviewed for a telecommunications job as a school teacher, it would have been no, very quickly. But I was glad that someone saw that, I'm a lifelong learner and I was really anxious to learn something new and to try something new. And sometimes we need to do that for the sake of diversity, think outside the box and take a risk.
Exactly. Very good.
Yeah,
Karen,
I'll add to that as well. I think again, when you're creating pipelines, so we have two initiatives at NBNC. As I mentioned before, we have an internship program where we really are very direct about where we're recruiting from and the people that we are recruiting. And we also have a new to wireless program that it's actually started a little bit before I joined the organization, but I took that program and looked at it as a sort of a diversity initiative as well, where we bring new people into wireless because, again, and 5 years ago, there was a lot of white males, and if we were looking at people to hire, that was pretty much our candidate base. So by bringing new people into the industry through internship and new to wireless and training them, of course they're not going to come with the skills, right, that we need, but we look for fit. And we hire for fit, and we do the behavioral interview, that they're a good fit for their organization, they have the potential, they're good, they'll be learners, and then this is a way, again, for us to build our pipeline and access all the colleges and universities and societies for minorities and women, and then just have a bigger pool of people to interview.
Very smart, very smart. Yes, any other thoughts?
I was just going to mention something else practical, and that is that Ashley's already offered to assist any of you all. The council that I serve on, MMTC, some of you all may be familiar with in DC, but for many years has been instrumental when, for instance, a large broadcaster might want to get rid of some small stations. They get a tax write-off, they donate it to MMTC, and they go out and try to find an entrepreneur, a local broadcaster, a diverse local broadcaster to take over that station and then stay with them, train them, sponsor them, provide all kinds of educational opportunities and support for them. So I think a lot of this is about aligning your companies with people who can find the right people, whether it's people who are motivated, lifelong learners, new entrepreneurs. You know, I think that's great. Another one in terms of women, there's an entity that I also belong to called Women Corporate Directors, WCD. They also have thousands of female resumes, so they have already gone through those. They have them by issue, by sector, and so I never like to hear someone say, we can't find anyone. We can't find a board member who's diverse, because that's not true. You're just not looking in the right place.
Excellent, excellent. Any other thoughts on that, Ashley?
If I had a 30-second pitch here, anyone who tells you, you know, you heard the beginning here that, yes, I want to hire diverse candidates. However, I also need to get the best person, and then somehow there's like this natural flow of feeling like somehow you need to lower your standards in order to bring in diverse talent. That is absolutely unequivocally untrue, right? You don't believe it, just type it into Google and somebody's already written about it. It's not true. It's exactly what Commissioner, and I'm gonna call you Commissioner, I like your DC title, said here. It's what you keep hearing here as well. You've gotta take your glasses off, clean them off, and get a better view of your talent space. And it's okay also to say everyone within our four walls doesn't have the solution. Our networks all look the same, right? It's okay to say that our networks probably overlap. So I probably need to step out and go to the industry over here that's doing a better job. If you're not willing to do that, then you're gonna have the same 3 generations you've had in the last 30 years. And you're also gonna get your butt kicked by your competition because they are employing these types of things. And I feel like every time I talk, I'm like abrasive, like March Madness. But I also hope that you understand you gotta have passion here and do this good work.
Very good, thank you. Our final question or point that we want to discuss is unconscious bias. So I'm sure all of us sitting in this room are thinking, oh gosh, no, I don't feel that way, and I feel this way, and you know, this is what I stand for, and I agree with all of this. But that's really not the issue or the challenge. The challenge is what we don't see. What are our blind spots? You know, how are we unconsciously making decisions and we don't even know we're making them? So I'd like to discuss that as our final point today. Ashley, would you like to start with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And let me, since it's the last thing, something you got to do. This is a cardinal sin if you don't do when we come off the mic. I got to acknowledge my mama's in here with me right there. And
there she is.
That's my mama here.
Yes.
Yeah.
You did well. You raised a good girl.
Yeah, her and my dad are awesome. And so, and then there's something called the Check Your Blind Spot National Tour. If you go on there, you can find out the next time it's coming to a neighborhood near you. It's literally a mobile bus that they've gutted out, right? And it's free to participate in this. And you can email them and ask them to come to your campus or into your city if they haven't been there. It takes you 45 seconds to go through, and at the end of it, it shows you what your unconscious biases are, right? So what is it that you don't even know that you have an aversion to, that you're uncomfortable with? For me, I'll be very honest with you, and it's sometimes uncomfortable, but to share, ask people to share this. But for me, I learned at the end that I'm not always comfortable in spaces where people have a severe physical disability. I have a fear that I might not engage with them appropriately, right? I won't be respectful in my language, that I feel like I'm over accommodating, like, and helping them in ways, and they're like, I have this, thank you, right? But it was important for me to go through that and understand what my bias is, so that when I engage with my employees and my colleagues, I do that best. And so I ask you to do that. And then I also think it's important for those of you really interested in this, to go look up what we call the IDI assessment. And so it's an inventory that allows you to, again, figure out where you are in the bias journey, right? And I'm happy, again, to go deeper into this, but there's so many tools out there. The worst thing you could do is to do nothing, because every single one of us is carrying a bias right now that's keeping us from being greater than we are right now.
Excellent.
So thank you.
Excellent. Deborah.
Yeah, so one of my jobs is to train about 4,000 judges and professional people, and one of the things that we do as a training, and we call it implicit bias. And same thing, we had all the judges in the state take an online assessment tool, and they were just absolutely shocked, because we all have bias. It's just that until you see it on a screen, it is really difficult to define it, just like Ashley did, and recognize it. But if you never do that part, then you can never get to the next part of dealing with it. So that is something that I would encourage everybody in this room. You can Google implicit bias or unconscious. Ashley has another website. Harvard has some tools. They're all great. The other thing I would say is that each one of us can help teach our children. So Ashley was just talking about her mom. My sons were memorizing the United States presidents, and they got to the end and they said, "So Mom, where's the page with all the women?" And I went, "What women?" And they went, "All the women presidents, where are they?" They were in shock that there were no women presidents. I was so excited. It was like I did a great job. Anyway, that's what I mean. We have to start younger and younger with our own families, our own children, in our own lives. And so I would just really encourage you all. I think it will be an eye-opener for all of you. The great news is that for all of you, you can bring people in to do this with your own management team or your own company, or to have an organization like WWLF or one of the other myriads of organizations bring in a team to actually help you all.
Excellent. Thank you, Deborah. Thank you. Any other final thoughts? Okay, wonderful. I'd like to thank everyone for being here till the very end, almost the end. Don't leave yet. Steve's got to finish, but thank you very much. If you have any questions, in the interest of time, we'll be available to you. The panelists will be available to you for a few minutes to answer questions. Thank you to the panelists. You were fabulous. Thank you for your time and being here today.
Thank you very much.